I would like to call to order on this day, Tuesday, January 20th, the public hearing for the City of Tampa Historic Preservation Commission. Welcome, everybody. I am Carrie Ann Canch, the chair of the commission. If you are here to present a request, please be thorough but concise. At the microphone, identify yourself and your relationship to the project before beginning your presentation. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Staff will briefly introduce the application. Applicants and staff shall have the right to give testimony and to present witnesses and documentation. Time shall be limited to 30 minutes. Staff will then present the staff report. We will then ask for public comment. Please state and spell your name if you are here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes. So take some time now to summarize your comments because 3 minutes goes by very quickly. The commissioners will ask questions of the applicant and staff. Next, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. The only comments that will be allotted or allowed for the public hearing is closed will be the response of any questions from the commissioners. The commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on the city ordinance, chapter 27 of city zoning code, and the testimony given at the public hearing. The Historic Preservation Commission can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owners and agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones. Now we will have the introduction of the commissioners.
Stephanie McQueen.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Sutton. I'm a registered architect. I also hold the architectural historian chair for this commission.
My name is Bruce Gibson, and I'm a retired architect.
My name is Laura Harrison, and I'm an archaeologist.
Okay, and now I would like to introduce the staff. We have Dennis Fernandez. We have Elaine Bond. Well, Elaine is not here. Okay, Elaine is not here. So we have Heather Bonds, and we have Jared Vernum, and we have legal Camaria Pettis-Mackel.
Madam Chair, now you just need,
Motion for the minutes?
Right.
Okay. Who would like to make a motion for the minutes from September 16th, 2025?
I move that we accept to the record the minutes of the Historic Preservation Commission public hearing of September 16th, 2025 as presented.
Who would like to second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, minutes passed.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Welcome to our first meeting of the year. Did have a few announcements before we get underway. The Nieto Fuente Buckeye Cigar Factory that was recommended for a local landmark designation at our September hearing is scheduled this Thursday for first reading at City Council. Staff will be there to provide a presentation and bring your recommendation to the council for designation. It was found to be consistent with the Tampa Comprehensive Plan by the Hillsborough County City County Planning Commission. So everything is moving appropriately. So next time we meet, I should be able to hopefully bring back that as one of our new local landmarks. And I appreciate your support on that. I did want to welcome our new commissioner, Stephanie McQueen, an urban planner, and she has graciously volunteered her time to serve on the commission. We appreciate that, and please let us know if there's anything that we can do to help you move into your new role here. As you're aware, we have a new parking routine in the garage when you come in the morning. Please let us know if you have any issues. We're more than happy to adjust the information that's out there. I think it's fairly clear, but it is a new process, so we'll we'll kind of monitor that for a little while till everybody kind of settles into it. In your packets this morning, you have a couple of newsletters that we prepare monthly and distribute. One in particular we're going to be focusing on this morning. It's the El Centro Español de West Tampa, or excuse me, de Tampa. This one is actually in Ybor City. There's another building in West Tampa with the same name for the same organization. But we're focusing on the Ybor City Centro because it is the 140th anniversary of the establishment of Ybor City. And so we're featuring different aspects of Ybor City throughout our newsletters this year and also our preservations in progress. And today's preservation in progress is focusing on the Centro Español de Ybor. The preservation in progress is a monthly presentation that we do, to a short look at different historic resources in the city and different stories of our history that we find to be interesting and hopefully helpful in applying your role here on the commission. So with that, I'm going to ask Heather to come up and give our short presentation in the form of a PowerPoint, and then we'll continue after that. Thank you, Heather.
Good morning. Heather Bonds, Historic Preservation Specialist. Get the PowerPoint up. Thank you. As Dennis mentioned, we're featuring the El Centro Español de Tampa today as part of our 140-year celebration of Ybor City. This is a contributing structure in the Ybor City Historic District. The first Centro Español was built prior to 1895, and here is the Sanborn map to show what was then called the casino, which is basically a recreation building. That was the term that they used back then. Here is the building today. This was constructed in 1912 after the one labeled the casino was demolished. This one's more in a classical style. I'll show you a picture of the first one here in a minute. The Centro Español was what was called a social club. These were considered kind of like almost like an insurance policy where they protected you from cradle to grave. People's dues went towards hospitals, cemeteries, schools, as well as all of their social aspects of their life as well. And this would have been where they met. This is the first building, more of a Moorish design, built in 1892. The club was founded in 1891. Different ethnicities had their own social clubs. The Cubans, Spanish, even the Germans all had their own social clubs, and Italians throughout Ybor City and West Tampa. As I mentioned, it was cradle to grave, literally. They had their own cemetery. And this was the sanitarium, which was known as the hospitals as well. Here is a picture of it, as I mentioned, built in 1912. And this is the one in West Tampa, so its sister club. So this past summer, the reason this is part of our preservation in progress is it was struck by lightning, and one of the directly on one of the finial caps there. So it needed to be reconstructed. So we had some emergency repair that we reviewed. They had to fully remove the finial, and they used it to cast a mold to create a new finial. It could not be reused, they determined. And they had to reinforce the base and the rebar there on top of the building. There's the original finial that they're packaging up. And I believe this is the new one that they've casted, and they just recently, we just got these pictures on Friday, so we had to update our PowerPoint. So this is the brand new one up on the building. This is truly a preservation in progress because they're still restoring the roof here and fixing it, and they'll be taking down the scaffolding here soon. So that, again, is the picture of the formal one back in 1895. So that is our preservation in progress. If you'd like more information, it is located in your bricks and mortar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Heather. So the cultural clubs are really a unique aspect of the history of Ybor City, and as we kind of reflect back on Ybor City on its 140th anniversary, these particular buildings and although obviously architecturally significant, they have a tremendous cultural value, and that's why they're so beloved by Tampans. The 1990 National Historic Landmark designation noted the architectural significance of Ybor City, but what really made, our factory town eligible for that distinction was the fact that these cultural centers are so unique to the ethnic composition of the population that, served as the workforce for Ybor City. So they're really, individually, they all have their own stories and their own unique histories, but collectively, they're really a jewel, and we appreciate the organizations that still work very diligently to preserve them and to preserve their missions and their stories. So moving on, I did want to, I don't believe we have anything to act on for conflicts of interest, so we can skip that for today. Because we are in a sort of a planning mode for the first meeting of the year, you're not going to have to motion today. So there's not necessarily any conflicts of interest or ex parte communication disclosures. We do not have any continuations to act on. Should we do the swearing? Yeah, we're just informational, so we're going to skip that too. These are all standard things that are on our agenda that we normally have to take a look at. But we do have a couple items that we wanted to present to you today because they are items that are taking up quite a bit of staff time. As you're aware, the staff serves as your support for this particular commission, but we also serve as the staff for the Architecture Review Commission and the Barrio Latino Commission. So it's very important that as we get into our year that we plan out our work and know what can reasonably be accomplished. And so we're going to share a couple of those projects today with you. And then moving forward, you'll see these items come back to you throughout the year in different formats. So the first introduction to a project is for the Tampa Heights Historic District. It is going to consist of a map inventory update, which the board, I think, is somewhat familiar with. That's periodically when we bring the maps that the staff and the Architecture Review Commissions use to essentially signify historic importance or historic designation, that we have those updated periodically because there are changes that are constantly happening within the boundaries of the historic districts. So that's a fairly routine function that we engage in. However, in this particular exercise that we're going to be entering into, we are suggesting that we align one of the boundaries of the district a little different, and that changes the context of how we move forward under the code. So this commission has the ability to modify classifications of buildings from contributing to non-contributing and vice versa. However, when there's a boundary alignment that is specific to any of the districts, that involves a separate process where it's a notice public hearing before this commission and then before City Council subsequently with 2 public hearings. So it's a much larger undertaking. But in recent months, we've become aware of some conflicts that are happening, particularly with one segment of the Tampa Heights District. Some of you may recall a few months ago when we had a particular property in that was here for a lot split, and we had to essentially realign the district at that time. That was later approved by City Council. But instead of dealing with these issues ad hoc as they come in, we felt it necessary that we deal with this all at one time. So I'm gonna just pause here for a minute because our presenter is walking in the door. I'm gonna give her a second to collect herself. And following that, we will have an update from Ms. Bonds on the Ybor City Historic Design Standards. As you're aware, we've been working on these design standards for quite a while. We've now come to another threshold where we want to bring you up to date. And then subsequent to that, we'll be providing you with the design standards for your review. So just as a point of process, the design standards for the local historic districts in the city are implemented essentially by the applicable architectural review board, but the Historic Preservation Commission is the commission which is responsible for creating the design standards. So the staff works with this commission on that process. However, we also engage either the Architecture Review Commission or the Barrio Latino Commission on making sure that their input is heard as well and integrated into the various drafts that we have. So we have been doing that periodically with the Barrio Latino Commission, and today we will kind of bring you up to date on where we're at in that process. Ready? Okay. So we will begin with item number 8, the Tampa Heights Historic District project, and Elaine will present this information to you. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff. Let's see here. Get our presentation for you this morning ready to go. So this morning we're discussing the map update for the Tampa Heights Historic District. Periodically we do these map updates. And this year we're looking at the Tampa Heights Historic District. Located just north of downtown, the Tampa Heights area was established as an early suburb of Tampa in the late 1800s. And the area is primarily residential with a few commercial corridors. You can see it on the map here in the center with the red outline showing the local historic district boundary and the blue outline showing the National Register Historic District boundary. It sits just on the west side of I-275 and north of I-275 as it curves and heads past downtown. And it's to the west of the Ybor City Historic District, which is also shown on this map, on the east side of I-275 and bisected by I-4. The Tampa Heights Historic District, again shown in the red outline at the center of the map, includes the area, or encompasses the area where the National Register Tampa Heights Historic District is, and it also includes a few satellite districts, which are the little red rectangles just to the west of the main district boundary, to the west of the contiguous district boundary. On its south end, which the south boundary of the Tampa Heights Historic District is 7th Avenue. On its south end, it also overlays a bit with the National Register Historic District of the Upper North Franklin Street Commercial District. Its main boundary on the west side is Florida Avenue, and it goes a little bit north of Florabraska Avenue up to the Robles Park neighborhood there. And you can see Robles Pond up at the very north of the map there. This historic district, Tampa Heights, contains buildings from as early as at least 1890, and its period of significance runs through 1945. And therefore, the district reflects a wide variety of architectural styles, from the free classic Queen Anne style to craftsman bungalows. The National Register District was established in 1995, and about 5 years later, the local historic district was established by the Tampa City Council. It's about 200 acres with over 500 buildings included, and approximately 60% of these at our last count were considered contributing to the historic district. In the pictures to the right, you can see in the bottom some of the contributing residential buildings in the historic district that are on North Morgan Street. And the upper picture shows, it's a 1926 picture of the intersection of Florida Avenue and Columbus Drive, which was then called Michigan Avenue. The building on the left that you can see there is, in that picture, is still present. But the remaining fabric in the area has changed greatly over time at that intersection. So as I said, staff periodically updates our historic district maps to make sure the historic district maps reflect the current inventory. So as buildings get relocated, as they have been known to do in Tampa Heights, or if new construction happens, which we have seen in Tampa Heights, there's been substantial redevelopment in this area, and new buildings have been added with any demolitions that have occurred. Those changes are adopted by the HBC when they happen, but then we have to go in and update the map. So we do these every few years all at once and bring that back to you and present the changes that have occurred on the maps themselves. This photograph shows the historic district map as it was in 2000. Again, with the red area showing the local historic district. And you're also looking here at a picture of the 200 block of East Adderley Street up in the northwest area of Tampa Heights. And this is how that block looks today, with three newer construction houses that have been completed now. And then this is the map as it was in 2017. So that's the last time this historic district map was updated for you. You can see that there are some additional, a couple of additional satellite sites. Originally, let's see. Originally there were, just 2 of the satellite sites. And the boundary for the local district was drawn in 2000 to encompass largely the same area as the 1995 National Register District, but expanded in certain areas to capture the neighborhood more cohesively, allowing for the historic district standards to be applied more consistently along blocks. That makes a little more sense for the neighborhoods as they grow and change, so that the same local development regulations can be applied. The local district also grew to include certain structures and some of the significant satellite sites. Originally, the historic district included a couple, one being the Gardner House, shown here in the photograph on your screen. And that sits on West Palm Avenue. We've added a couple of additional sites since then, which were relocated from within the Tampa Heights Historic District. So as those were relocated, we also made sure that they would be included in the district as well. The north end of the district, which we're taking a closer look at as well this time around, you can see how the district boundary was expanded to the north beyond the National Register District boundary. So the red one, again, is the local district, and in black is the National District. This expansion to the north was done in part to ensure the inclusion of the Graham Bottling Works building, and that was a late request by the owner in that process. So you can see on sort of the western boundary there that the district line as proposed for the local district have followed the alley up behind Morgan Street. That's Florida Avenue on the very west, and then Morgan Street's the first street that runs north-south within the district. So once we get to Florabraska Avenue, the district boundaries jog just a bit to the west, run behind the parcels that are on Florida Avenue, and then the line is just pulled straight up to Jeanette at the very north of the district there. So this line, looking at our current district map, it is a little difficult to see on your screens, and I apologize for that, but there's the historic contributing structures are shaded in, and they include some of the buildings that front Plymouth Street there on the very north, and none of the buildings on Florida Avenue. And they do include that large rectangle at the corner of Plymouth and Jefferson Street, which is the Grand Bottling Works building, and a few of the buildings where Adderley Street curves up and goes to the west. It's kind of a confusing street layout in that area, but you can see how there's definitely a mix of contributing and non-contributing structures in this area. Additionally, you can note that the district line as drawn doesn't really align with the property parcels in this area. So that's something we want to take a close look at as well. This primarily affects parcels along the northwest district boundary lines. The parcels that are affected are shown in green on this aerial map. And the parcels in general are shown in blue. But again, our red boundaries are local district, and the green outlined sites are the affected property parcels that are intersected by our local historic district. So these are all the areas where the current historic district boundary does not align with the existing parcels. A number of these are ripe for redevelopment as well. And we see that in some recently submitted projects, such as this rezoning request, which has come in at 3101 North Florida Avenue. This is a proposed rezoning presented as a rezoning from the residential multifamily category to a planned development, which is a site plan specific rezoning category. The building shown as proposed on the site plan did overhang into the historic district boundary. This would result in a project that would be partially under review by the Architectural Review Commission, which is the commission that reviews any proposed construction in the Tampa Heights district. The Architectural Review Commission reviews and comments on site plan like this for rezoning requests. So they would review this, excuse me, they would review this rezoning request and make a recommendation to Tampa City Council. And then they would look at it again when it came through for a certificate of appropriateness for the actual construction itself, for the appearance of the building. But again, they would only be looking at that small area that's within the historic district. So scaled out, scaled out, this is about 10 feet of the eastern side of this affected parcel. So we will be taking a look at that and coming back to you with some recommendations about the best way to handle that situation. We may be looking at changing the boundary line so that it lines up better with those parcels, so that they're either in or out completely, and so that the redevelopment that is reviewed by the Architectural Review Commission is comprehensive for the sites that fall within the district boundaries. So I apologize if I'm rushing through that. I'm a little had a few things going on this morning. So while the inventory update to the map is a staff function that we present to the Historic Preservation Commission, a change to the district boundaries requires a public hearing process that ultimately must be approved by City Council. For the general map updates, we always do the field work necessary to confirm that the buildings that are at the field and on the sites are correctly reflected on our updated maps. So we do document the presence of the buildings, confirm their status, and photograph every site that's within the historic district. For a change to the district boundaries, should we pursue that, we will be doing community outreach as well. This process would require a review and recommendation by this board to City Council. So after staff develops a map that we would bring to you as a recommendation, we would present it to you at a noticed public hearing, and that would require the historic district residents to be noticed. Following the recommendation by this board, there would be a review by the Planning Commission staff. That's a separate agency that's not the City of Tampa. It's the Tampa-Hillsborough County Planning Commission. So their staff would make a review to make sure that the proposed changes are consistent with the Tampa Comprehensive Plan. And then the proposed changes, if we make changes to the map boundary, would be presented at City Council, and that would require 2 public hearings, which would also be noticed to the residents of the historic district. And ultimately, the City Council would be the one approving any changes that are recommended by staff and, of course, by you. So, again, apologies if I rushed through that. I am available if you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. So I did want to offer an opportunity for comments or questions at this point.
I have some questions.
Okay.
So first thing that I was wondering, so when the boundaries are looked at and the district evaluated, are you also making a qualitative evaluation on individual structures, whether there should be any change on whether they're qualifying? I'm not using the right terms, I don't think, but
The classifications of the structures?
yes, as
Right.
either contributing or non-contributing.
Correct.
That would be like the first half of my question. And then, the district, this period of significance, I think was from 1890 to 1945, but now we're 25 years later. And since the ordinance has a requirement that structures be 50 years or older, we've now got 25 more years from 45 to 75. And I don't know if there's any consideration of buildings in that time frame that were not eligible in the year 2000. Thank you.
Thank you. So to address the first question about the classifications of the structure within the boundaries of any historic district, structures are normally classified as contributing, which mean they contribute to the integrity of the district, and that brings with it a sort of a higher standard for review. And then non-contributing, which are either built outside the period of historic significance or which have been compromised so that they no longer reflect their character and they don't contribute to the district any longer. So the answer is yes, we look at those classifications in a couple different ways. We go back to the original documents which created both the national and the local historic district when we're conducting this field work, and we ensure that our map, which we call it a map, but it's really a visual representation of the historic inventory of the district. So it has a higher purpose than just describing where structures are, which we know nowadays can be accessed digitally very easily. But we will compare those previous documents to ensure that what we have on our inventory is consistent with those original documents. We have found in other previous map updates, with other districts as well, that we do have some conflicts in there where certain categories may not be reflected accurately, so we will correct those. In doing that, if we see a property, for instance, that may have been non-contributing when the inventory was done, it falls within the historic period of significance, but maybe at that time had alterations which made the reviewer regard that as non-contributing. If they've done work to bring that back into compliance, then there is an opportunity to convert that to a contributing status. So we'll look for those opportunities and work with property owners. Sometimes we brought those to you incrementally as projects are completed. Most property owners that are kind of engaging in that level of work have that sense of pride that they want to realize that change and protect the structure. So we'll compile that. If we're able to bring that to you collectively, we will. And if there's an opportunity to work with the property owners to change that, if it's through their efforts, we'll certainly try to take advantage of that. If there was an error, we will correct it. We will always engage a property owner, though, to let them know what's going on, because that is their property and they need to be engaged in that process. As to the second point, could you remind me again what?
25 years has gone by, so
Yeah.
presumably there's another
Period of
25 years
significance,
that
yeah.
exceeds the 50-year minimum.
So that gets a little more complicated because we're now looking at what qualified that particular district for designation. And those periods or significance were first established by the National Register designation and then essentially incorporated into the local historic designation. So the periods of significance are always going to be the same between the national and the local. So if we find that there is a grouping of structures that fall outside the period, then we would have to have a discussion about if we would care to try to modify both periods of significance. The periods of significance should be the same for the national and the local. What we have done in the past is created essentially landmarks within the districts. We've done that, for instance, in Ybor City, where there's a wider range of historic styles, and we will kind of designate those almost in a multiple property fashion within the boundaries of the district. One property that kind of comes to mind is the Martí Maceo Cultural Club. We were just talking about Cultural Club, but that particular cultural club that they're in today on 7th Avenue was a result of their original cultural club being lost to urban renewal. So they had to relocate in the 50s, which is outside the period of significance for Ybor City. So we approach that as a landmark. We have a few of those in Ybor City.
So I have no idea if there are any buildings or sites within the district that date between 1945 and 1975. But if you see some, will you bring those to us, or would it depend on the community to request it? I was kind of wondering if you're doing a survey for the purpose of mapping, and you see something from that era. I do understand it would be out of the original period of significance, but if there's some site or building in that time frame. Is that something you all would bring to our attention?
We will certainly bring that to your attention. We'll bring kind of a lot of data to you when we do that map update, but we would look for, owner engagement and owner support for those types of designations, because when that owner purchased that particular piece of property, they relied upon, the ability of their use of that property based on what the classification was at that time. So we would certainly want to work with them to hopefully preserve the structure if it warrants it. There are some structures built, transitional type structures, early ranch style structures in Tampa Heights that are, particularly in the north part of the district that may be interesting for consideration as in addition. Anything further?
I could come up with another question if no one else. I was just going to ask, so this is sort of maybe a legalistic question, but we talk about maps and we look at maps, but at least when I've worked on a zoning district establishment previously, there was no graphic map associated with the ordinance passed by City Council. Isn't a physical map that we've been looking at, aren't those just convenient ways of getting, of imagining the district, whereas, at least I know at the zoning district, what City Council voted on, what the city clerk processed and what the mayor signed was a written description of boundaries, and everything within that written description was included in the district. Is that actually the legal mechanism for historic districts, and the map is just a convenience to everyone?
Well, the map certainly is a convenience to staff who relies upon it, and often to property owners and developers, but it carries more purpose than that. As I said, it's a illustrative description of the historic resources which are within the city. You have the ability to control those classifications. That's why we bring those to you at a public hearing, and they are essentially adopted for each segment, for each district. Zoning classifications, depending on what they are, can be very different, whether Euclidean zoning versus an actual planned development zoning. But there is a legal description, a written legal description that's required for those rezoning processes, as there is a written legal description that's required for the boundaries of the historic district. So that is one of the reasons that we'll be bringing you that back in the future if there is a decision to adjust the boundary for this particular project, because we would then need to adjust the legal description of the district, which would be ultimately considered for adoption by City Council. So there's a lot of specificity in this process so that property owners and developers and interested parties have a clear understanding of what the situation is for these districts and within the districts, the inventories. They become very much a legal resource for the staff to defend designations if they're challenged.
So in a follow-up to that, sir, the boundaries that we see on these maps that are presented to us on a regular basis, those actually exist as a legal description, much like a meets and bounds for any piece of property, only it's over a much larger area. Is that correct?
That's correct. And once the boundaries are established, the Historic Preservation Commission has the ability to change the composition within those boundaries from contributing, non-contributing, that type of thing, but cannot adjust the boundaries without City Council action.
Thank you.
So we'll continue to work on this project in warmer days for the field work, but it is something the district itself is rather compact, so we don't see that field work taking necessarily as long as our last map update did with Ybor City. It took almost a year, but validating the information does take some time in the office, and we will bring this back to you. We will update you along the way to let you know when you can anticipate that action. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to item number 9, which is an update on the Ybor City design standards, and Heather will present that to you.
Morning again, Heather Bonds, Historic Preservation Specialist. I'll be providing an overview, mostly for our newer members, and an update on our design standard update process. Again, we wanted to update you on our progress for the design standards for Ybor City. The reason we're updating these, it is to create an updated and unified set of standards. The original guidelines were produced in the 1980s. So within that time, there's new construction materials that need to be addressed, new technologies, and we need to have a cleaner format that's more modern and to address any issues for the future as well. The existing Ybor City guidelines, as I mentioned, were created in 1986. They serve as a guide to rehabilitate existing structures and a guide for new construction within Ybor City. We're working hard to create a set of modernized standards that will be codified and adopted by City Council with your recommendation to assist owners and developers in meeting their project goals in a historically sensitive manner, provide specific measurements of success, address modern topics, be reformatted and better organized, conform to ADA compliant texts, promote maintenance and encourage rehabilitation over new construction, and overall create a more user-friendly product. Okay. In our updated standards, there are 6 sections proposed. We've started each of these sections and completed half of them. I'll provide a brief status on each of these subsections. Our introduction is completed. We have reformatted it with new pictures and texts and have included the YC 7, 8, and 9 sub-districts, which were not included in the original version. However, as you may know, our zoning code is being overhauled right now, so we may have to tweak this if any changes happen to our zoning districts. We have completed this and we'll be providing you a copy of our introduction after this meeting. These are the sections or the subsections that are included in our introduction, everything that we kind of overview between our history, our processes. We've provided guides so that an owner, a developer, project planners, they're all on the same page on how things are reviewed. We've provided guides on what they need to bring when they present to the Barrio Latino Commission, who oversees Ybor City. The processes of each meeting, so they have an outline of how the meeting flows so that nobody walks into a meeting completely blind. They can use this guide to know from project planning what materials they can use. They should be able to use this product to help them on all their project planning within Ybor City. Our next section is maintenance. We are expanding this section from the original draft. The reason is we really want to encourage maintenance in historic districts. We want people, instead of having to watch their structures collapse or ignore them, we want to promote maintenance above new construction. So we're going to be providing how to keep your windows efficient or your property more energy efficient overall, and even use the National Park Service's guidelines on flood adaptation for rehabilitation on buildings. So we're going to provide some of those National Park Service references as well in this section. Rehabilitation, we are finishing up this chapter right now. This is going to clearly define what's permissible and non-permissible to rehabilitate historic structures. We're going to be using a lot of before and after so that we can show people what have been done. Instead of just using basic diagrams, we want to show that these projects, these ideas have been completed before to give people more inspiration on what they can do on their historic structures. These are the 14 standards that we're using for new construction, and we've broken windows down into 3 subsections based on their treatment, whether they can rehabilitate their windows, replace their windows, or even adding and deleting some openings as they modernize or modify their building. The first 9 or the first 8, I would say, are the general treatments for historic structures, and then we break it down into building types like accessory structures, commercial storefronts, industrial buildings, landmark buildings. We tackle adaptive reuse, and we get into substitute materials, which is something you all will be able to review once we get there. This is the layout. Basically, it starts with our standard, which is a shall standard. We want to say this is what you shall do with this criteria, which in this case, porch rehabilitation. Then we provide some background and some guidance, and then we clearly define what is permissible and not permissible when rehabilitating. And then we try to show some diagrams. I've even gotten into AI a little bit on the bottom to show what you should not do. When we're picking out the inappropriate examples, I'm trying to avoid using real people's houses. So I'm using more AI or drawings in those cases. And then providing extra illustrations to show some before and after, as you see in the porch rehabilitation on the right. That is a wonderful example of somebody reopening their porch and using proper colors to accent their porch. And then some historic references for each of these criteria standards. So you can see what was in the district, because oftentimes when we ask someone to come forward to give a presentation, we ask for historic references. So we are going to help people out and provide some of those historic references for them so that they can get a starting point. Next is new construction. We've previously presented this to you all, and you've had the draft for this one. So this one is completed. There's 26 criteria topics that we tackled in this section. Again, here are those 26 subsections that we wrote about or provided standards for. Things that we've added that were not in the original 1986 version were defining what's a buildable lot, the different forms and styles, murals, rooftop structures. We expanded accessory structures, tackled commercial parking lots, and more modern equipment such as solar panels, different equipments that were not around in 1986. We have a 2-page design for new construction, basically a front and back. So if we have a pre-application meeting with a contractor, we can provide the specific subsections for them, and it can be a nice handout version for them to see what is permissible, what is not permissible, give that shall statement again that should be identified for them to follow, and again, some illustrations for the permissible and non-permissible actions towards new constructing in Ybor City. Site or setting and site components. These are all the other components on a lot that make up the historic context or support the lot. This is everything from your fences, your driveways, any of the modern equipment, your AC units, all those other elements on a site. So we have 18 different subsections in setting and site components. We've added standards for artificial turf, which again was not around in 1986, sidewalk furniture, public utilities, solar panels, and we address the accessibility modifications to a building to make sure a building is accessible to everyone while maintaining historic sensibility. Again, this is going to be a 2-page layout with that shall standard at the beginning highlighted, some guidance, permissible, non-permissible, details, and again, some illustrations so that people can visually see what is permissible in our districts. We've broken out signage, because signage is very important, into 3 different subsections, starting with historic signs, new signage, and then very clearly what is prohibited in Ybor City when it comes to certain sign types. And again, offered some historic references so they can see the various styles of signage that they could potentially select from if it's something for new construction or if they want it to go back to something more historic. References, basically this is an ongoing chapter that we work on whenever we come across a new reference. This is also going to include your different architectural styles, a glossary, and all of our sources. So for our timeline here, like I mentioned, we've got 3 chapters finished. Those are 3 of our bigger chapters with the introduction, new construction site elements, and we're wrapping up rehabilitation. So next in the process is to present you all with those sections, which we're going to be providing the 2 sections that you haven't seen yet, which is the introduction and the site elements. We'll be providing those to you after this meeting, and you will are invited to provide your comments to us. And then once we have the full draft completed, we will come back to receive additional feedback from the HPC. We will engage the public at that point, and then do staff workshops with both the BLC and the HPC, and then hopefully have a nice, wonderful, collaborative product to provide to City Council with a positive recommendation from you all. This is the design guideline process, which is outlined in 27-231.11B. The first step is you all or staff initiates the revisions. We develop the draft, which is in process, and then we present you all the individual sections, district-wide public noticing, a BLC recommendation, an HPC recommendation, and City Council. So as you can see, there's at least 5 public hearings that go into revising our standards. And so with that, I'll ask for any questions you may have. All right.
Thank you, Heather. So as you can see, both of our items on today's agenda are very staff intensive, and we're with the design standards, we're going to provide you these as we have sections that we feel are ready for your review and comment. We're doing that somewhat informally at this point. We'll reserve time on the agendas so that we can have those discussions. But in the more formal approach, as the code dictates, we'll bring that back to you at the appropriate time at a noticed hearing for a formal discussion and a motion if it's appropriate at that particular juncture. So we've got a lot of, I don't think I've calculated hours on this particular project, but we're looking at putting the time and effort in now so that when we update future design guidelines for the other districts, we've got some of that basic template already formulated, and that'll hopefully save us some time there.
just as a general thought, we often see projects come through, whether it's a renovation or an addition to a contributing structure or a new structure coming into an existing historic area. That happens through all of our districts. And one of the things that you all work very closely with these developers and owners is to develop, if you will, some case studies. You know, what are your precedences for, you know, doing this work? Have you thought about how you want to define those precedences within this, these guidelines? I mean, as an example, are you going to insist that a precedent for the work be exclusively within that zone of that historic district? Or is it to be expanded outward through other districts in the city, or even throughout the state of Florida? Because many times, particularly with the newer constructions, we're looking at scale and form and formats that are, that almost dwarf these more diminutive districts that we do have in the city of Tampa. That if you were to say, I would like to build something smaller but on the line of the Florida Inn Hotel for this apartment building in Ybor City, would that be an appropriate reference? Because it's outside of the boundary, but it's within the historic property venue of the city of Tampa. Would that be contributing? Would that be a worthy precedent? I think a little bit more of a guideline within this document, as well as others that will probably be developed in the future, would be of a great benefit, because sometimes we see a lot of hits, and mostly we see a lot of misses in terms of what people bring to us in terms of a precedent.
Correct, and you have a unique perspective, having served on the Architecture Review Commission and having to apply the guidelines as well, so I appreciate that. I think we're working hard to try to accomplish those references. I tend not to call them precedents because each project should stand on its own, and what I seek is to hopefully achieve compatibility within the district. That doesn't need to necessarily be replication. There's a place for new construction and new architecture in historic districts that can still be compatible yet differentiated. I think, you know, one of the reasons we kind of paused a little bit this year in the design standards was because there is so much intensification, particularly in Ybor along the periphery with the Gasworks project, which is kind of partially in the district and partially out. And we learned a lot from reviewing that particular project, but just because it's a unique opportunity to develop that much land, you know, either adjacent to or within the district, and we adjusted some of our sections of lessons learned so that we would be able to hopefully use that information to help subsequent projects down the road to achieve compatibility. So I think, you know, that's been a goal of ours, and you can tell us as you review the district guidelines if you think we've been able to accomplish some of that, but there's always room for input. And my litmus test on this is that what we place into these standards and what the expectations are within the district are consistent with the national standards. We are not presenting a guide to easy development. We're presenting a guide to preserving historic structures and introducing compatible infill into the historic district, which I think you know, is where we're centering our efforts.
Excellent presentation on both of these topics, and I have a special place in my heart for these, the Ybor guidelines, since on my first day of work for the city of Tampa in 1984, I was handed a draft of these guidelines from a consultant and said, you need to get these adopted. So I think the amount of work that you all are putting into it to get these to a modern place is very much appreciated and needed. And I do think what didn't exist back then was not only the technology to show examples, to your point of real examples of what meets and what doesn't, but there also weren't any examples because it was the first time it was adopted. So I see how much work that you're putting into it, and in a way it's almost more difficult to redo something and update something that already exists than starting from scratch. So I'm really anxious to see these next couple of chapters, and the ones you've already done have been great. It looks great. It's so easy to follow that I think it's really a great effort and much appreciated. I think will be appreciated by users on all sides. So good job.
Thank you. I think seeing no other questions, we'll go ahead and move through the agenda. Appreciate your attention to these matters. As I said, you will be seeing more of these in the future. So I'm not aware of any new business unless there are any new business that the commissioners would like to bring up.
I'd like to bring up something, at least for thought and consideration. So last year, we had a number of hearings regarding demolition permits of hurricane flood damaged, or hurricane and flood damaged, subsequent flood damaged properties on Davis Island. And although they did not come to us, I'm guessing that there were, well, I know there were many properties in Tampa damaged by flooding that were not in historic districts or with designation. But I just wonder if you or staff have had time to give any consideration to how increasing threat from flood and wind will affect our historic districts as well as individual landmarks or individual buildings, and if there's anything proactive that perhaps the city, your staff, this commission should be thinking of in those regards. That's kind of a big open-ended question, I know, and I'm sure you all attend conferences and seminars, and I am curious what the thought is on this subject. Thank you.
I think it's it's been a challenging year with that particular those particular events, challenging on many different levels, obviously to the property owners who experienced the impacts of Helene and Milton, but also in the recovery of that and having to try to apply preservation goals when you're having these very emotional issues sort of in the backdrop and as a catalyst. So it's been a challenging year in many different aspects on that level. I think that what we're seeing is that this is not a Tampa-centric issue. This is an issue, particularly if we want to try to manage it, particularly in the Gulf states that we're really experiencing, and in Florida as a whole, with a lot of the different types of implications to sea level rise and the climate issues that are obvious. But it's something that we're still vetting through. We have dealt with some properties, as you know, demolition has been one result, and then we're also on another level dealing with elevating structures. We're seeing that quite a bit, and working through that process in accordance with FEMA standards and the desires of property owners to, either meet the design flood elevation or exceed that. There's obviously a reaction to, I don't want to have to experience this again and my property's a threat, and trying to balance that with the standards that the National Park Service has provided to us through different documents. And I know we've all attended seminars and webinars on this to try to get up to speed on it. But each particular locality is kind of managing it, trying to rely upon the efforts of and experiences of other localities that have kind of gone through it. So I don't have a path forward right now other than saying that we're assembling different tools and approaches that are out there, and there's not a one-size-fits-all for this. But I think education, identifying resources, which we've been able to do. There's been some programs that have been out there at state and federal levels to assist property owners in preserving structures, whether they're historic or not, and in preventing the results of these types of incidents. And I know that the city of Tampa as a whole has been very proactive in trying to work with property owners to manage the effects of those hurricanes and that flooding, but at the same time to make sure that moving forward, their properties are protected and meet the federal requirements for bringing them into compliance so that they're not subject to, that type of effect in the future, hopefully. There's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot more to work on in that, but we spend time pretty much every week discussing this, and we're trying to chart out a path that makes sense for everyone involved. So I think there's a lot of future discussion we can continue to have on it. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, we do not have any submitted documents to act upon, so I think we're ready for adjournment if the board feels so.
Oh, thank you guys for your presentations. I thought it was excellent, and yeah, Ybor City, that's been a long process, but I can't wait to see it when it's finished. So I just wanted to see if anybody wanted to make a motion to receive or submit documents or exhibits. Did we have any documents that we wanted to submit? No?
I don't. The presentations are part of the record. We don't have any additional documents for you.
Okay. So with that, I'd like to adjourn the Tampa Historic Preservation Commission public hearing meeting for today. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Okay.